Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode on the Travel Collective where I have exciting conversations, engaging conversations. And today I'm talking with Mikkel. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, April. I'm excited to be on.
Wow, I don't even know where to start because you have the bears in the middle of the night, you have travel stories, you have pursuing what you love. I mean, all of these topics really, really resonate with me. So I guess share where you feel like that desire to get out and travel. Do you feel that was nurtured as a child? Is it something you discovered? Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think as a child, we moved quite often, about every year or so. And so the newness factor is always something that I crave. And it's funny because if I either need to move a lot or I need to travel or a combination of both. And so right now in my life, I found this combination of the same because my husband likes to stay put a little longer than I do. So we're typically about 3 years in a spot, and then we'll move to the next location. But in that, it's like moving, like traveling a lot, especially towards end, because I'm like, I need to get out, I need to see things. I just love seeing the world in different avenues and experiencing newness in my life.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. I can completely relate. So, what is an experience that really you felt changed you when you were traveling?
Oh, so many of them. So I had an early retirement in my 20s where I was backpacking for some time. So I'd go out into the backcountry for a couple of days and come back, shower, get food, go back. So I did that for a while. And that was transformational because I was doing it by myself. I was the only one out there. And this is actually where the bear story comes into play. So for the audience, backpacking by yourself in the middle of nowhere in California, just the trees and the wilderness and the bears and the beasts and everything out in there. And I had never really had concerns about bears before. Put your food away. Of course, I knew that.
Oh,
Um, but one night I went to bed, and in the middle of the night I got woken up by this outside of my tent. And so I was like, this, my sleeping bag frozen. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what happens here. And so, yeah, I just had to like freeze there for, I don't even, it felt like 5, 10, 15 minutes, but probably was like 30 seconds in reality. But from that time on, I had to like look up, like, how do I deal with bears in the middle of the night? And so for everyone that is out in the backcountry, to handle bears, you just make loud noises, especially for areas where they're not used to people. That
oh,
will work like a charm. And so make loud noises. So the next day, night, I just put on some music, some loud music to be able to have just in case. Be like, okay, just like
yes.
have this music be able to play if a bear comes by. But there was no problem whatsoever. They just wanted to check me out. But yeah, it was transformation, and like I had to rely on myself. I was the only one out there. And another story from that time is I was hiking up this hill, pack on my back, 40 pounds. I'm like, okay, like, I'm trying to figure out the mileage for my trip and being like, okay, where am I gonna go? Where am I gonna camp? What's my next stop? And I was trying to calculate the mileage. I was like, it doesn't add up. Like where I'm trying to go, it just doesn't make sense. So on the other side of the peak, I sat down and was like, okay, I map this out, map me, like mileage days, trying to map it all out. I was like, oh yeah, there's no way I'm gonna be able to make this like, loop I'm trying to do. So actually I have to turn around right now so I can get back with the food and days that I had
Right.
prepared. So at that point, I was like, okay, double check everything before you go out there. Talk about it so you can make sure it's right. So it's a very good learning experience of relying on myself, pushing myself to my wits' end at some points, and going and doing what I wanted.
Oh, I love that. That is true. And such great tips for people thinking about going out there solo because it does call to us. We just want to go out, get away from the people, especially in places that are very crowded in a way. And there's lots of cities in the US that are getting that way. And you just feel like I just need to get away from all this energy. You can almost feel it. I say that about LA all the time. Like you just feel it even if you're not sitting on the 405 or the highway or freeway. You just feel this hustle, this pressure. So
Right.
I love
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so nice to be able to get out with no one. That's one of the reasons why I love backpacking so much, is because the parks, the state parks, national parks, the local parks are all getting so busy. But when you get out further, when like especially during the middle of the week, you can get out and just be by yourself, and it can be so nice.
Yeah. So how did you decide on what kind of gear to take with you too? Because that's for a lot of people, they don't even know where to start with like the bare minimum.
Yeah, it was a learning process. So I hadn't backpacked much before that. I didn't really have anyone that was teaching me or helping me with it all. So it was trial and error, being like, okay, like I'm not sure if I really want to do this long term, so I'm just gonna grab a pack. So went to REI, went in, was like, okay, I'm gonna grab a big pack. What looks pretty, what looks feels good, what will work. And then I went on to Amazon and I was like, okay, sleeping bag, what sleeping bag do I need? So it was that whole process for it all, not wanting to spend too much because I wasn't sure how much I was gonna like it, but having somewhat good quality with it all. So it was just Google research for it all and trying to
Oh,
figure it out. But one thing that I did learn over time is water filtration, because there's some new water filtration that's really simple and easy and light. One of the companies is called Catadine, and it's just like this collapsible bag and then a small filter like this big.
oh wow.
It's like 4 inches by 2 inches. It's really small and light. And so that I turned to eventually. And that was really nice because it resolved a lot of issues filtration wise for water.
Oh yeah, and that is so super important. Even if you're going out for the day, a lot of people with this heat, they just, and we're hearing these terrible stories, they just didn't have enough water. Literally, they're getting
Mhm.
dehydrated. So really to think about, even
Yeah.
having those packs with water, something. What are you going to do for water and some snacks? You got to, and also even if you think you're just going out for the day, weather could change, conditions could change, and you might be out there a lot longer than you anticipated.
It's so true. Yeah. I was actually out for a hike 2 weekends ago, and so I'm in on the coast of California, so it could be foggy here. And so we think, like in my mind, I'm like, it's foggy, it's not gonna be very warm. And then you go inland like just a mile and it's hot. And that's what we did, is we went in a mile and I was all dressed for a little bit more foggy weather. And I got too hot hiking up a hill, got dizzy, and like sat down. And I was like, told my husband, like, I'm like dizzy, I'm a little loosey. And he's like, okay, just take off your shirt. Like, you got a nice sports bra on, that'll be fine. And so I did that. And it's like, we were able to cool down. I was like, okay, we can do this. Because so the hill that we were on were so steep, we didn't know what we signed up for. So that was very interesting and a good learning lesson to be prepared and communicate a little bit more so we can all help each other out when we're going through hard times with it all.
Yeah, exactly. And always tell people too, if you are going out on a hike, at least leave some information with one person that, where you're going, when you expect to be back, and I mean, you can still tell them like, hey, I just need some downtime. Don't be calling me on my cell phone. But, there are
Yeah.
places that still amazes me. There's still places where you don't have cell phone coverage. So don't rely on that.
No, yeah, so many places that you think you do, and then you get like over a ravine or something, and you're like, oh, no cell service. That was actually what happened when we went on that hike. That was too hot. We didn't have cell service on the other side. So like places where, and that was pretty close to a city, so we totally thought it would. But yeah, you can't always rely on that. But having that set time, sharing and communicating with friends, family, someone that you know and trust, who could follow up and be like, hey, I haven't heard from you at the end of the night or whatever it is, whatever time period, to make sure that they can check on you and send people out to be able to help support you if necessary. Because things can happen, especially when you go out by yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So what tips do you have for people that are thinking about solo travel? Because I know a lot of women, for some reason, it's a big topic, solo travel, women. I mean, I know there's guys out there, but I think for women, it's just innate in us to have that sense of I'm not ready. What if what if I do encounter some bears? All of those doubts and hurdles that we I don't know why we put them in front of ourselves.
Totally, yes. I hear the same things over and over again by people hearing me like I went backpacking by myself. I'm like, you did what? And I'm like, yeah, totally fine. Like I feel safer in the backcountry than the city by myself any day. So know that that is the case. That the biggest thing that you're going to face out there is maybe a bear, maybe a cougar, but knowing how to handle yourself in those situations. Play big, speak loud, those type of things are all going to serve you well. Providing that support to other people, telling them where you're going to be, when you're going to return, make sure that you're able to support yourself when you're out there. So water, snacks, a first aid kit, of course, if anything's going to happen, and knowledge and training of if anything happens, what do you do then? And one of the things that I like to do when I travel myself now is like to go to like state parks or national parks or where more people are, just in case
Yeah.
something does happen that I'm not going to be out on a trail that no one else is. So when I'm out by myself, I may not go on a uh like weed whacking, going through some bushes, trying to figure out like, oh, I want to go to the top of that hill. No, probably some more stay to the trails because someone's gonna need to find me if anything happens. If I roll an ankle or anything else, you gotta be able to get support in some ways to be able to get out. When it comes to like more flying to somewhere or
Oh,
more
yeah.
city life and everything too. I actually went to Mexico in June by myself for a retreat. And so that was fun to get away. And so it's funny to be able to talk to people there and like, oh, you came out by yourself? And I'm
I
like,
was
yeah,
just gonna say, yeah.
totally.
They
Mhm.
hear Mexico and alone, and our minds just kind of what?
Right. Yeah, but it's flying into Cancun. Like the whole retreat was kind of set up to be able to help support me, but I had to get there and figure out how to go through customs and everything. And I think oftentimes we feel like when we're alone that we're going to be lost. We're not going to sure what's going to be
Yeah.
happening. But when you're alone, you don't have as many distractions. You don't have someone like there to talk to or like distract you or anything. So as I went into customs, I like looked around. I was like, okay, scoping my scene. What do I got to do here? It's like, oh, there's signs. I have no idea what that says. Cool, great. And then you see like someone that looks more like a local and knows what they're doing. And like zoom to the back of the room. Like, oh, I should follow them. And then they went to the bathroom first. And I was like, yeah, I should
Oh
probably go to
no.
the bathroom.
Right.
And then I waited in line for like an hour and got through. But yeah, I think it's just keeping your eyes and ears open and like being aware of your surroundings and what's going on because there's indications, there's signs, there's signals that tell you what you probably should be doing and what you should not. If you got an icky feeling, you probably want to move or change something with it all. But if you're like, yeah, like what are they doing? What's going on here? And like being open and friendly can take you a long ways because like when you're by yourself, you don't have anyone else. I've gone to Mexico by myself before and didn't go to a retreat. I just went to a hotel by myself, and that was for like 5 days. And Mexico, so I didn't know anyone. So like coming out of it, I met someone at the airport on the way back at the restaurant. Sat down, like another couple spoke English. And then like the guy was
Oh,
chatting me up and I was like, oh my goodness, you're talking to me. Thank you. Like I just want to talk to someone in English that I know. Like I'm learning Spanish now, but I'm not fluent. I can't speak that well. So it was great to be able to chat with someone. So
yeah.
it's funny how we get afraid of like talking to strangers, but by the end of something like that, you're like, please just someone talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. And I like how you touched on our guts. I think we
Yeah.
do have, and I think I find it true with women, is we do have an innate sense built into us to keep us from harm. You just got to listen to it. And when we're alone, we often are more in tune to that. I mean,
Mhm.
I've been with people. It seems like when I'm with people, sometimes even in a city, it's easier almost to get pickpocketed, scammed, any of those things, because you're kind of like, you almost are like relying on the other people and you're not as aware of the signs, the signals, the gut instinct that's saying, you know what, you need to go the other way. This person is not helpful.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
It's so funny because we think it's the total opposite, that they're going to provide that safety. But in reality, it kind of tunes us out to our surroundings a little bit because we're kind of focusing on that connection with them.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned, I think, Maui as a place that you love.
Yeah, It's just this relaxing place for me. Like I live at the beach, but to go there, it just that's how I feel about it because there's no words where I'm just like on the beach reading a book, doing absolutely nothing and allowing that to be it. Seeing spinner dolphins out there,
Oh, wow.
snorkeling. Yeah, it can be, I think it's just the place where I go to relax, to let loose, to do absolutely nothing and be okay with that.
Oh, I love that. That's fabulous. And you
Mhm.
also mentioned a book that I wasn't familiar with. Tell me about Look Again by Talia Sharot. I don't know if I'll get the name right.
Yeah. It's one that I'm reading now. It's an interesting one because it talks about how our perception and what we see is different than oftentimes reality and how our brain works on a different way. So, a recent chapter that I read was on when you see something multiple times, you'll believe it as true, even if it's
Mm,
true or not. And so this is very relevant to our time and where we're at in the world because information, false information is out there. Any information is out there
Oh,
and we don't know if it's
yeah.
true or not. So the more times you see it, the more that you believe it's true, which can be scary knowing that. Being like, okay, like even if it's something crazy, like the sky is orange, the more I hear it, the more I'm gonna be like, the sky is orange, right?
Yeah.
Very extreme example, but
Right.
you kind of get the point from it all. So it's interesting to see and hear, like, okay, that is going on in our brains, and so many different things that we think are true may not actually be what's going on.
Yeah. I think that's completely a good thing. And it ties into like again, kind of figuring out who you are, finding out what your hurdles are, and whether it's travel or business, you kind of have to learn to like kind of a little bit kind of judge for yourself. I mean, because
Mhm.
there's an argument for almost everything out there. Like you said, drinking coffee's healthy. No, drinking coffee's not healthy. I mean, it's like you can
Right?
just spend so much time worrying about all these things, and at the end of the day, I mean, you got to do what's best for you.
Right. And understand and know your truth of what that is. Like, what is the best for me? What do I enjoy? What do I need for rest? What does that look like for me? Because if you don't know that, then there's no way that you're going to be able to be like, okay, boundaries. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to behave. This is how I'm going to show up. You don't know that.
So, talk to us a little bit about what your passion is right now. I think you're working on a few different things.
Oh, yes, several different things always. One of them we talked a little bit about hopping on here is my new coaching program called Travel Transformation. So it's for service-based business owners, mostly female, ages 30 to 50, who are ready for the next level. And so that's a combination of several different things that we're doing. So we're talking mindset, we're talking strategy, we're talking human design, we're talking about travel. We're actually traveling to three different spots. So
Oh,
it's
that's
over
awesome.
3 different months. I know, right? It's so
Yeah.
cool. So the first month they're coming to me in Southern California to the beach, and we're talking about what is it that you actually want. So how do you want your life and business to look like, and how can it support you in ways that really work for you? And using their human design, which is kind of like an astrology based system to be able to help you understand yourself and be able to use that to be able to be like, okay, like how can we actually implement this? How can we make this happen? And then the next month, and the next month, I'm actually going to them.
Oh,
So we're
that's
actually
very
being
cool.
able to like make sure they actually can do it in their lives because so often you go to something and you're like, yeah, totally, I can do that, whatever. And then you get back and you're like, no, I really can't. So I'm gonna meet them where they're at and be able to be like, okay, how are we gonna actually make this work for you and what things need to shift to be able to make it happen? And then the third is going to a destination that they've always wanted to go, but have been putting off for one reason or another. So we're going to go and take them there and be able to show them that what they thought was stopping them, what they thought was their next level, there's actually more beyond that. There's something else. And so as this is all occurring, we're figuring out how their business looks like, how their life fits in, how who they're becoming in the process of traveling and experiencing this process, who it is they want to be, like choosing that next level for them and stepping into that each and every single day.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Right?
Yeah, it
It's really
sounds
cool.
really cool. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
So, what should people know if they're thinking about signing up for the travel transformation?
You'll be supported. I think it can be really scary to be like, okay, like I'm doing so much, like this is my next level. What's gonna happen? And know that there's like we'll do these trips. There's gonna be coaching on the back end in between to be able to help support you throughout it all. And also, you're probably more ready than you think. Like you're probably ready to be like, okay, let's what's next? What's happening? You might be burnt out. You might be like questioning, like, is this it? Like, there's gotta be more. Like, what's my next level? What can I do else? And that's what we'll figure out. That's what will help you understand and really get you passionate and be ready to be like, okay, yeah, I'm ready for this. Let's do this.
I like that. I think that's incredible. And I think right now there are so many options to stepping into, what it is that you want to do or be. I mean, if there's anything good that kind of came out with the whole COVID thing is I think it made businesses realize they can do things differently to keep employees, that whole work-life balance that so many people need and we're kind of setting aside.
Ah. It's so true. And I think, especially with technology and where we're at today, there's so many things where we can get support internationally. We can use software. There's so many different things where we can actually create a business and run it in ways that really work for us.
And there's a lot of people actually that, even their families I run into, they're moving out to completely different locations, outside of the United States and doing what they love, raising their kids. I mean, I think that's
Hmm.
amazing. Stuff that wasn't maybe as years ago, maybe people were just not as aware of these opportunities because they didn't have all the resources. They didn't have the information. It wasn't as available.
It's so true. Yeah. And now it's like people are talking about it and we're able to do it. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're going to Portugal? Yeah, cool. I want to go there.
So, what are some of your other places that you've been that you think are amazing besides Maui?
Yes, Chile. I went there last year and it was an incredible 2 weeks. I went down to Patagonia and Santiago is the two stops that we kind of made throughout it all. And like I love the mountains. I've been to a lot of mountain areas. And so I like thought like Patagonia and be like, yeah, it's just mountains, right? It's not. It's incredible. It's totally worth it to go down there. Just the iceberg, like
Oh, wow.
yeah, there's glaciers, it's just so beautiful and so amazing. And then you have the wildlife down there that's so different too. It's funny because we were driving down to our location and the tour guide was like, Wanaka. And we're like, what are you talking about? Wanaka, Wanaka. Doesn't speak very much English. And he was like, oh, like a llama. That's kind of like their
Oh,
llama. They have a
right.
different type of llama down there. And there's like this emu type thing. So there's all sorts of different wildlife. And that was really cool to see such different things down there. And because it's the southern hemisphere, of course, it's going to be on the opposite season. So that was
Yes.
very interesting going down there as well. And we saw penguins.
Oh,
The
well,
pole of the
yeah.
trip was to see penguins. So that was really fun to be like, okay, we saw king penguins and Magdalena penguins. And there's Humboldt penguins down there that we didn't get to see. But there's such amazing wildlife and terrain down there. And the people were so welcoming as well. That was wonderful to be a part of as well.
Yeah, and Chile to me is somewhere that's still kind of off the it's not like, we hear about France and Italy and
Yeah.
so much of Europe, but yeah, Chile is something a little bit more exotic and interesting. I love
Hmm.
that.
Yes. Yeah, that was amazing. So I'm more diving deeper into learning Spanish now. And one of the reasons was going to Chile and be like, yeah, just speak to English to me because my Spanish is so poor.
I know.
So
Yeah.
it's gonna be good to have it a little bit more accessible for me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So talk a little bit about the book Look Again. Oh, that's the one we talked about. Never mind. Who is
Yeah.
the shoe dog? That's one I haven't heard of either.
Yeah, so that one is by Phil Knight, the owner of Nike or the starter of
Oh,
Nike.
okay.
And I'm from Oregon originally. So Nike was a pretty big thing. I went to Oregon State and University of Oregon. It has connections with Phil Knight and Nike. And I always thought like, darn you, Nike, like you fund them, like you put so much money into their program, like what's going on here? And then I read the book and I was like, oh, it totally makes sense. And yep, okay, got it. And it's really cool. Just this process from going from having this idea of wanting to be able to train and have access to shoes for runners. So the Olympics are going on right now, and so
Yeah.
it's fun to be able to see like, okay, like these runners are using these type of shoes, and this is what they're experiencing, this is what they're going through, and what you can do to optimize the shoe. Because I would never think about
Right.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like how you just change this one little thing and how it has such an impact on running. And then how we just stuck at it and being able to go to track meets and be like, here, buy my shoe from the back of his car and just being like,
Oh my
doing these
gosh.
different things. And then the real reason behind it was he just wanted to advance the sport of get more people out there and be able to run and do better at it. And so it's crazy to think like what Nike is today and where it started with it
Yeah,
all.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, we view it now as this big, huge corporation, but the fact that one guy kind of had this dream and this idea, and using the example of, yeah, he was out there too, just selling it out of his trunk or giving a pair of shoes to somebody that's a runner, just so someone would try it and
Mhm.
that passion. I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's a good one.
That is a good one, and I love the example that, starting again, you can start small, and if you have that burning desire to change whatever, even if it's a pair of shoes or Hey, I mean, things that we don't often give much credence to can change multiple people's lives. I mean,
Right?
huge.
Millions, billions, yeah, whatever you want to imagine.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, this has been exciting. This has been really inspiring, Mikkel. So tell
Mhm.
people where they can connect with you, where they can find out more about the travel transformation.
Yeah, so you can find more about that on my website, afulfilledlifecoaching.com. And then my social that you can find me the most at is on Facebook with my name, Mikkel Leslie.
Wonderful. Hey, thanks so much. And I'll be excited to hear more about the travel transformation. So thanks so
Yes,
much.
thanks so much for having me.
All right.